Hello guys, Fallen Messiah here and welcome to another Diablo 4 build guide. Today we are in the PTR and we are trying out the brand new Hydra Sorcerer. The build is super fun, I had tons of fun playing it, assembling it, and I can't wait to share the build with you guys and show you everything that I've learned throughout this process. As always, sit back, relax, as I will guide you through everything you need to know to play the build. Everything from skills, items, Paragon, to the new boss powers. We're going to go through everything and then we're going to show some gameplay just so you can see how the build actually plays as well. I just cleared Pit 90 and let me tell you something, in the PTR, Pit 90 is not a joke. Most of the high performing builds this season like Death Trap or Lightning Spear have been significantly nerfed, so very few builds are actually going to reach Pit 90 in Season 9. I had to really dig deep to clear that threshold. And of course, as always, because this is a PTR build, some things are bound to change, so just a little bit of a disclaimer there. But I have to say that most things that do change are sort of numerical in nature. I think this build is just fine. I don't think it's super OP the way some builds in the live season are, so I don't think we're going to see some drastic sweeping changes. If anything, this build probably could benefit with a little bit of a buff, if you ask me. But anyway, with that out of the way, let's get into the build itself. But before we do, I just have to say that these builds take a long time to make, to research, to assemble, to play, and to plan on the planner itself. So if you appreciate these efforts, consider subscribing as it really helps me a ton. Anyway, let's get straight into it. Alright guys, as is tradition, I'm going to guide you to the skill tree first. So we're starting off with Firebolt and Enhanced. This is only to progress further into the skill tree, but it also has a nice enchantment effect where it kinda heals us a little bit as well, so it's not a bad thing to have. As far as the core skills are concerned, we are not picking anything here. Instead, we are going with 3 skills for Devastation for more mana, because mana equals damage. We'll talk about that in the item portion of the build. And we're going with 3 points in Elemental Dominance as well, because our new amulet turns Hydra into a core skill, so it benefits from this as well. Everything else here is from the items themselves. 1 point Teleport, Enhanced, and Shimmering. This is our main source of Unstoppable. It also has a pretty nice damage reduction as well. And also it's going to proc our T-Ball's Will as well. So it's overall just a nice thing to have for mobility and damage reduction. 3 points Glass Cannon, 1 point Energy Focus, and 1 point for Dampen Layer, just for a little bit extra damage reduction. 5 points Hydra, Enhanced Hydra, and Invoked Hydra. This is going to ensure that we have 100% cap on crit strike chance. I'm gonna put 1 point into Precision Magic for more lucky hit chance. 1 point Ice Blades, Enhanced, and Roaring. So this is a summoner build. We're going to be placing our Hydras, and all other summons are there to kind of supplement our damage, to provide vulnerable, to reduce cooldown, etc. So we are going to make sure we use all of the summons because of the primordial binding, which I will explain in a moment. We're gonna put 1 point into Align the Elements, 3 point into Protection. This is going to grant us pretty much a permanent barrier. This is very powerful, so we want to make sure we have 3 points here. 1 point into Lightning Spear, and then 1 point into Enhanced, just so we can get additional Lightning Spear as well. We're gonna put point into Familiar, Enhanced, and Invoked. We're gonna put 3 points into Primordial Binding. Now, Primordial Binding is going to be one of the biggest sources of damage multiplication in this build. We have 11 ranks. I will show you in the item section how we get to so many ranks in this passive. But basically, what this does for us is we get 22 summoned damage per 1 active summon up to 10 stacks. We are going to have 10 stacks or 10 summons at all times, which means we are benefiting from 220% of multiplicative damage at all times. It also gives us a lot of move speed and mana regen, so basically we cast Hydra and then we get our mana back very quickly. That's why we're going with every single summon we have available. Hydras, Ice Blades, Lightning Spears, and Familiars are all in our build. We're also going to be putting 3 points into Mana Shield. Every time we spend 100 mana, we gain 40% damage reduction, and we will be having this on permanently. This is just a huge damage reduction for us. Over here, 3 points Inner Flames, 3 points into Devouring Blaze. Again, I will show you in the item section how we stack up so many ranks in this. These are huge damage multipliers for our build. 3 points into Permafrost, 3 points into Icy Touch, and 3 points into Hoarfrost. Even though we are dealing fire damage, we are still benefiting from all of these multipliers. 1 point Inferno, Prime, and Supreme. This is another source of Vulnerable. And also, while Inferno is active, we gain another 50% increased damage, which is another source of a pretty big multiplier as well. And because of our aspect on our boots, we're going to be able to have almost a permanent uptime of Inferno as well. 1 point into Fury Surge, and 3 points into Soulfire. This is another source of damage multiplication for us. 3 points Elemental Synergies, 3 points Evocation for more cooldown reduction, and finally, we are going with Essus Ferocity. Unfortunately for Sorcerers, Pyromancy skills kind of suffer for the lack of good key passives, I would say. You can go with Enlightenment, which I tried as well, but it just doesn't work all that well. So at very least, this gives us a lot of damage, ton of damage while our enemies are about 50% life, but once they're below, it doesn't really do anything else for us because we're already capped on critical strike chance to begin with. But it does work on bosses, so at least that's a good thing. Alright guys, let's talk about the items now. So, for the items, we're going with the Shaco or Harlequin Crest. This is the best in slot item for many different reasons. So it gives us a ton of great affixes which all complement our build really well. So life is good. Max resource is probably the most important stat on the build, which I'll get to later. A lot of armor, that's what we as sorcerers tend to struggle with, and a lot of cooldown reduction as well, just to make things a lot more fluid. It also offers damage reduction and +4 to all skills. As far as masterworking is concerned, you want to make sure to masterwork maximum resource as much as you can. If you get a GA max resource, that will be preferable. On the chest armor slot, we have Shroud of False Death. No surprise there, this is just the best item in the game. You can go with Raiment of the Infinite. I suppose in theory you could squeeze a little bit more damage by triple hitting Glass Cannon, but I don't like that. I think this item is just overall a lot better, provides a lot more value with other passives. I feel like in general this is the better solution. You want to masterwork all stats. I double crit max life here because I already spent a lot of time assembling this, but overall, generally speaking, you want triple crit on all stats here. Now for the gloves, this is how we managed to get 11 ranks to Primordial Binding. Basically, these gloves, we only care about Primordial Binding and nothing else. Everything else here is completely irrelevant. So try to get GA Primordial Binding, try to triple crit it the way I did here. Again, any other stat here is completely irrelevant to us, but this is a huge source of damage multiplication. For pants, we're going with Thibault's Bill. We deal up to 20% increased damage while unstoppable and 5 seconds after. We gain unstoppable with our teleport, so this is pretty much almost always on. These are not the best pair of Thibault's Will, but they still get the job done. And also, very nice additional property is we get 50 additional mana every time we cast teleport, and we're going to be needing all of our mana very quickly, and I will explain why very soon. For masterworking, we want to make sure to triple crit this max resource. This is the most important stat on this item. We're going with legendary boots, we're going with the aspect of Orange Herald, because we have a lot of summons over 10 at any given time. We're going to be having almost permanent uptime on our Inferno because of this aspect, so make sure you pick the aspect up. As far as the stats are concerned, we're going with Intelligence, Life, and Movement Speed. And for Tempers, we're going with Move Speed, and ideally you want Barrier Regeneration. I didn't get it, so Fortified Generation here is sort of a brick, but it's fine. Also, this masterworking you see here, like 2 yellow, 1 orange, this is just PTR being PTR. It's obviously a bug, but it is what it is. For the weapon, we're going with a 2-hander staff. We're trying to juice up as much damage as we can. For the stats, we're going with Intelligence, Max Life, and Crit Strike damage. Now for the Tempers, this is the most important stat probably in this entire item pool. And I was really lucky here. Casted Hydras have plus 12 heads, so you want to make sure you triple hit this with your masterwork. I'm gonna get into why in a moment. So going with Hydra heads and Hydra damage for Tempers. For the aspect, we're going with Serpentine. It's a rework of the aspect, and now when we cast Hydra, it consumes all of our mana to increase its damage by up to 5% per mana consumed. So if you take a look at my mana here, I have almost 200 mana. So if you do the math, that's 1000% of multiplicative damage as long as I cast Hydra on full mana, which is a lot of damage. That's why we're stacking max resource on our Shaco and on our Thibaut as well. And now the star of the show is the brand new amulet this season, Ophidian Iris, which is sort of the enabler of the entire build. So it transforms Hydra into a core skill, and it also says for every head above 3, which is kind of default that it would have had, the Hydra instead deals up to 100% extra multiplicative damage. This is why we're masterworking heads on the staff, so plus 12 times 100. This means that we can get up to 1200 multiplicative percentage of increased damage based on this interaction. So this is very powerful. Now, as far as stats are concerned here, we kind of want to double crit or triple crit Devouring Blaze, 10% extra multiplication on our crit strike damage per rank. So this is another very powerful source of damage multiplication. The value on the power of this item varies dramatically, from 50 all the way up to 100, so I could have squeezed even more damage in if I found 100% here, but this is close enough. So try to get damage range as close to 100% and try, if possible, get a triple crit to Devouring Blaze, and if you could get a GA on Devouring Blaze as well, these things are really going to supercharge your damage output. For Ring, we're going with Intelligence, Crit Strike Chance, and Crit Strike Damage, and for the Tempers, we're going with Infernal cooldown reduction and Hydra damage. Again, don't mind the masterworking here, this is just a PTR bug. We're also going with a Flashfire aspect. This is another reworked aspect this season. Another huge source of damage multiplication, which basically increases our crit strike damage multiplicatively by 45% and double that on healthy targets. So this is another huge source of damage multiplication for us. And finally, now no Sorc build is really complete without Tal Rush's Iridescent Loop, so this is just another straight up to 75% damage multiplier. We're going to be having this on pretty much all the time. As far as the values on this item are concerned, the best value is cooldown reduction, followed by lucky hit chance. Others are not really important. I was not super lucky to get cooldown reduction GA, but I did the best with what I was given. The most important thing is to get 25% damage or as close to it as possible, because this gets multiplied times 3. Everything else here is secondary. If you can roll cooldown reduction GA on top of that, that's great. If not, that's okay. Alright guys, so with items out of the way, let's talk about runes. I tested a lot of things, but ultimately this is what I settled for. So on our helm, we're going with Igni Vex. This is going to be increasing +1 to all skills, and with the overflow mechanic, it can also increase up to +2, +3 as well. So just overall a little bit more damage, a little bit more cooldown reduction for all our skills, etc. I tried other things as well. For example, put Thule for Frost Nova. This is going to be inflicting freeze and more vulnerable. Or you can also put Loom if you're struggling with resource. But ideally, if you set everything up the way I'm showing you, you shouldn't really struggle with resource, because we have 11 stacks of Primordial Binding, and with all of our summons out, we'll be gaining mana back like crazy. This is a pit push optimized setup, so if you're speed farming you can go for something else, but this is what I found to work the best in pit tiers 90+. For the second one, we're going with Nagu and Ohm. As you can see, our Warcry is popping off just by itself without me ever really having to do anything, and you're going to be basically having a permanent uptime of 15% extra damage, because we're going to be having pretty much 10 summons at any given time, so it's just a permanent 15% extra damage. On the pants, we're going with Intelligence for more damage, and on staff, we're going with Emeralds for crit strike damage. Now, before I talk about new legendary gems, we have to talk about new boss powers first. I'm not gonna go too much and too deep into this kind of mechanic, but in the new season, we're basically crafting our own boss powers in a sense. We have a catalyst. This is kind of like a base of our boss powers, so like base of a sandwich, if you will. And then as toppings, we're going with these other things. Infusion is kind of telling our catalyst what the damage type is going to do, and adds other perks on top of that. And these are all extra modifiers on top of it. So let me just break it down quickly why we selected what we did. So you can notice these little kind of my companions. These are cosmic anomalies. What's very important about these anomalies is they have a summon tag. And if you read our primordial binding, you will see that it says we gain a stacking bonus for each active summon, not conjuration. This means that all of our anomalies plus conjurations all add up for us to gain huge multiplication from that passive. This ensures we're always going to be having 10 stacks of primordial at any given time. And that's why we're going for cosmic anomalies. So basically, every 5 seconds, one spawns, but once we cast Hydra, the skill on which they're bind to, they're going to explode and do damage and be consumed in the process. This is how you choose on what skill to bind the catalyst. For example, if I put it here, anomalies will be detonated when I cast Familiar. But I actually want them here on this slot, so this is where it's going to be in the planner. But, I can't put it back right now because the game lags. It's just the PTR experience for you. For Infusion, we're going with Glacial Nimbus for several reasons. First of all, this is going to allow our anomalies to chill our opponents, and in turn, this procs Hoarfrost. Additionally, this infusion also deactivates monster explosive effects for 5 seconds. The reason why this matters is, these monsters in the pit that have these affixes also have resistances to these elements that these affixes are kind of attributed to. So for example, the chilling wind mobs have cold resistance, and explosive mobs that have these affixes have fire resistance. We actually deal less damage to them, so this is going to deactivate that and allow us to deal the full brunt of our Hydra damage. If this is the base of our sandwich, these are the toppings, then these would be the sauces, in a sense. So these legendary arcana sort of do different things based on what catalyst we're using. So this Frigid Heart for our anomalies, they actually have a 20% chance to preserve themselves instead of imploding every time we activate Hydra, and also they freeze surrounding enemies. This is pretty nice for extra crowd control, and also just in general to kind of not consume our anomalies and to kind of get them back quicker. For second arcana, we're going with Fractured Core. Now I spent many hours on PTR testing everything, so trust me when I tell you this is the best one that you can pick. Fractured Core deactivates monster damage resistant auras for 5 seconds. Now, because this is a summon build, we're relying on our summons to deal damage. You cannot target monsters directly. So if you have these monsters with resistance auras, you're going to have a bad time in higher levels of the pit because it's really hard to target them directly. So this is going to ensure that we actually deactivate that, and it's going to allow us to clear the pits a lot faster. For third arcana, we're going with Potent Alloy. Same reasoning, but this deactivates enemy barriers, and if you know anything in Diablo 4 barriers on monsters, like they can have up to several times more barrier than their health, which is really annoying to deal with. So this just kind of ensures that we deactivate that as well. Of course, all of this is also going to be featuring in a full planner, which will be down below in the video, so you can always reference that anytime you want. Alright, now let's talk about the new legendary gems. We will have this in the planner as well, but I went with, after we injure or kill an enemy, our summons are empowered, growing larger, and dealing 30% X damage. So this is just a nice little multiplier for all of our conjurations, especially for our Hydra. We're also going with this one, which is slightly less relevant, but to be honest, I just wanted something to juice up our damage just a little bit further. This is based on our lucky hit, dealing damage of our infusion's element, which is cold, and our ice blades do cold damage. Also has up to 33% to trigger the secondary effect, which is the explosive effect deactivation. So just having that effect on a lot more. And finally, we're going with this. We deal 20% more elemental damage, but we take 10% more. It's kind of like the glass cannon passive we already have. It's a trade-off, so that's fine. Now here's another one that I also used, but I decided to swap it. It's called Idle from Below. We gain 6% intelligence, 8% max life, and unhindered, which on paper sounds great. But there's this secondary aspect that says that we will be hunted by Jewel Guardians. Now what does that mean? You basically have these sort of like elite mobs chasing you, which if you're in Torment 4 is like a non-issue, you're gonna crush them. But the problem is they also spawn in the pit. If you kill them, you get progress. But they have these weird modifiers where they slow down your progress a lot. One of them has this poison damage that's really hard on pit 90+. So I found that my progress on the pit has sped up significantly once I actually removed this gem. So be wary of this. These guardians are actually kinda hurt in higher pit levels. So just something to consider. And one extra thing that I would like to say is do not sleep on consumables, or more specifically, Elixir of Usefulness gives us 25 max resource. Now, as explained earlier, we get 5% extra damage per mana, so if you do the math, that's 125% multiplicative extra damage just by popping this potion. So make sure you have this on at all times, and of course, this is an easy way to fix your resistances, your armor, and everything else that you're lacking. You know, you can make up to 450 extra armor just with these two alone. Let's go to Paragon. I've spent many hours optimizing this for you, so there is a rhyme and reason behind this order of things. However, as always, feel free to customize this however you want for your own build. If you want to pick something that suits your playstyle better and you want to change something up, that's entirely your prerogative, but I've spent many hours optimizing this so you don't have to. So ideally, you want to follow along the order, but again, feel free to do whatever you wish. But the most important thing to do, as always, is to make sure you get both bonuses of every glyph and to make sure that you get all legendary nodes on Paragon boards. You do those two things and you're golden. But anyway, I'm just going to quickly go over all of my choices, and again, you will have all of this in the planner. Now, you will notice that I deliberately did not spend a lot of my points. The reason behind that is because I wanted to prove that you don't have to be Paragon 300 to clear Pit 90+. I deliberately decided not to select any additional points, so what you see here is going to be exactly on the planner. So the planner Paragon has kind of the minimal required points for you to get the build online. And you don't even have to be Paragon 200. You can be even Paragon 180, 190 if you have enough reputation and Paragon bonuses. But anyway, let's get straight into it. For the first glyph, we're going with Destruction. This is a staple of any build. This just multiplies our crit strike damage, and if you have any extra points to spare, ideally you would spend them here on Dexterity, because every point of Dexterity increases crit strike damage from this glyph. Second board is Elemental Summoner. We get reduced cooldown, we get up to 60% bonus for our damage, so this is just another source of damage multiplication. Make sure this bonus always says 60%, but this is not hard to unlock, and I will show you why. Our second glyph is Elementalist. This glyph increases our rare nodes, and this rare node actually provides non-physical damage, so it kinda unlocks itself. Again, that's why I'm saying that this board has a rhyme and reason to it. If you select these rare nodes, they will benefit from this glyph and they will unlock fully this bonus. Third board is Searing Heat, just another source of damage multiplication. Now, because this bonus is unlocked by critical strike damage, you will not really have to do anything about it. This is just going to unlock itself, you know, as long as you set up the build properly. Third glyph is going to be Tactician. This is a bonus that we'll be having on pretty much all the time. Board number 4, Enchantment Master. This has been reworked in Season 8. This is why we're working to fire enchantments, so we're getting a ton of extra damage from this. Glyph number 4 is Pyromaniac. And final board is Frigid Fate. Even though this board is sort of meant to speak to cold skills, we are still making our enemies vulnerable, so we are going to be having this bonus damage all the time. And even though this says bonus damage with cold, all sources of non-physical damage are counted. On this board, you will actually unlock bonus both for this and for this. And for the last glyph, we're going with Eliminator. Alright guys, and finally I'm going to just show you a little bit of my Pit 90 clear, just to show you the gameplay itself. It's not super complicated. Basically, you just hit things that are off cooldown. So let me just show you how this looks like. Now, I'm sorry if things are a little bit visually spammy. This is just how the build plays in higher pit tiers. It's really hard to see things at times. But basically, so let me just show you quickly how all things work. So, every time we cast Hydra, it's going to deplete all of our mana, and then it's going to do damage based on how much mana we had. That's why we were stacking mana to begin with. Everything else just serves to complement that damage. So, as you can see, we have 10 stacks of Primordial Binding at all times. This is going to be up to 200% damage multiplier for us. we are casting everything off cooldown. We're casting Inferno, we're casting our Lightning Spears for more vulnerable, for more stacks of Primordial. We're having almost permanent uptime on our teleport for unstoppable, for more damage. So it just all synergizes well with each other. The only problem is that the build is a lot spammy, is quite spammy in these pit tiers 90 plus. On Torment 4, however, it absolutely crushes everything. You just press Hydra and things melt and disappear. It's super fun, it's super satisfying to play. It's just when you're actually pushing, you kind of have to be mindful and be spammy because you want to hit things off cooldown to make sure you have a maximum amounts of stacks of all of our sources of damage. But this is essentially it. So we're just basically spamming everything that we can to make sure that our Hydra deals the most damage. And you can also have up to 3 Hydra at any time. You have this number here, so you want to make sure you always do have 3 Hydras. And you want to make sure you always cast them when you're at full mana. So look at this, when I cast Hydra, look how fast I get it back. So it takes like maybe, I don't know, 3-4 seconds tops. So ideally, every 4 seconds you would hit that right click button for Hydra, and then you just click everything else off cooldown. And that's pretty much it. And there you have it, guys. This has been my PTR Sorcerer Hydra build. The build is super fun, super fast. It's a blast to play, and I'm looking forward to you guys checking it out yourselves, whether it's on the PTR or in the live version of the game. Now, of course, as always, this is PTR. Some things are going to change numerically speaking, but the gameplay is going to remain pretty much the same. They only really tweak the numbers, they go up or they go down, but the actual gameplay style remains the same. So consider this as sort of a proof of concept and see if this is something that appeals to you, if you like it. If you do, let me know down in the comments. And of course, as always, if you appreciate these kind of efforts, because these videos take a long time to make, I would appreciate if you hit that sub button. It really helps me tremendously. Well, that's been all for me today. You can expect more of these PTR guides coming along soon. The second video is going to be Archmage Summon Necromancer. I'm really excited to try that out too. And I will make sure to have a build guide for you just like this one. And of course, as always, below the video there will be a planner that you can reference at any given time so that you can see what you're doing in case you get stuck. If you have any questions, let me know and I'll be happy to answer them. Anyway, that's gonna be it for me. I'm Fallen Messiah, and I'll be seeing you in the next one.